No, if we're going live, I'm voting euthanasia. I tell you, we're live.
Euthanasia, they were a great band in the 80s. I really like them.
80s rock band.
Sweet dreams are made of this and all that sort of a thing.
That's right.
Euthanasia, they were great. Yeah, exactly. Traveled the world in the 7 seas. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. We are in, look, MTV. Again, red card to the dear viewer. You're absolutely right. I did forget to press the start button. I did start it now, didn't I?
And welcome to the Golden Oldies live stream.
Exactly. But Josh is here. Josh is here to balance the age thing. He's bringing the age down dramatically.
Well, how old do you think I am?
A lot younger than us.
Yes, this is true. I look 20, but I am 34.
34 in the shower.
As I said, a lot younger than us. Well, of course, Ian's a youthful.
Maybe not me.
No.
I still get ID, so I think I take that as a badge of honor. I think.
You still get IDs. It's a very, very, very long time since I've been IDs.
They just asked for a certificate.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do we start? We're going to definitely talk parachutes with Josh shortly. And I've just opened up my emails to see that Ian sent me a load of them. So which ones do I need to open, Ian, for this here?
I think I've just sent you the one freedom of information, which is to do with the video we have down bottom. So you can either do that now or you can do it later. It's up to you.
All right, let's do that now because then I can keep up. That is that X. No, you sent me Brendan.
Before you show the freedom of information on the screen, though, you have to show the video first to remind everybody.
Oh, that's good because that'll give me a chance to find what on earth you're talking about. All right, let's add this to the stage.
I apologise to all the passengers who've been disrupted by this irresponsible act. Last night at 9 o'clock in the evening, a drone was spotted by 2 different members of my staff, and so as a result we had to close the runway for movements. Since then, the drone has appeared and disappeared and appeared and disappeared through until 2 o'clock in the morning. At 3 o'clock in the morning, we then reopened the airport, feeling it had gone, and then it came back again at 3:45, and so we closed the runway again at 3:45, and it remains closed now. As I stand here, there is a drone on my airfield as we speak.
As I stand here, there is a drone on the airport as I speak. 8:05 a.m., day 2. Now, freedom of information was being used, and dear viewers,
if I was slick, I'd have this ready to go, wouldn't I? Something like this. Oh, has it not appeared? Is that the sighting one you want, or you want the other one? Hello, Randall. Everyone.
Yeah. You'll just have to scroll down a little bit.
Oh, this is so slick, isn't it? It's like on television.
Basically, long story short. Now we could see in that video, you had daylight. So these times, at the time it was in December, it was in darkness. So the last time the airport staff had actually seen it was 40 minutes before he was on air. A police officer had seen a light after that time. Whether he'd have known about that or not, I don't know. Possibly not. But either way, he's there in front of the cameras, getting all giddy and presenting this. Oh, there's the drones on the airfield now, and this isn't backed up. I would have expected, around about 8 o'clock, maybe a little time before, if he's had a little time to set up for the camera crews. But funnily enough, he does an interview 1 minute after that, and he's not quite as he uses different wording. So I think when he's in front of the camera, he's doing quite a bit of ad-libbing that I don't think adds up to the evidence that's there. But I just thought that was interesting because it always struck me. I thought, if he's saying it's out there with such certainty at that moment, why didn't the camera guy just grab the camera and go, come on, mate?
Wish out there. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, exactly. It didn't go well, did it? It really didn't go well, that. Now,
so it's just another one of those little insights of saying when you start picking away behind it, it's not quite as convincing. But yeah, this is the one that this was part of the legal thing we've been talking about over the last few weeks. So this has literally been fought for years, and then all the way up to tribunal, and then to having to do a contempt of court filing for it to appear. So that's the drama that's gone on just to get those 2, 4, 6 lines, and that just shows you just how daft it is. and the fighting that's had to have been done over Gatwick.
So what you're telling us, Ian, is the takeaway is that there weren't as many drones at Gatwick as they've claimed.
Yeah, probably not. No.
This is.
Yeah, go
on, mate. No.
I was going to say this is one where I've raised a complaint against the DFT with the ICO, and it's kind of stemmed from this. But this here is just a long line of just being generally messed about. But I think we might have talked about these before or not. But these here are emails that have known to have been there and have been deleted. And there's even the cheek of trying to blame the ICO, saying they tell us we shouldn't keep hold of data. So it's now with the ICO to have a look at. So there's funnily enough, quite annoyingly, the representative of the ICO that's been given this case is the same one that was dealing with the Sussex police case where they fought against me, and I got quite a passive aggressive comment in an email today. So I wasn't that. Let's just say I was polite but firm in my reply. So it's going to be it's going to be an interesting time on pursuing that one. Oh no, this is interesting as well. So I won't go too much into this one because this one's been set to private for now. What's going on here, but as just to show the stuff that he's thrown at me continually now, it's Section 24's national security, which is the one that's generally gone for, and it's not warranted. And the ICO are pretty good with this. You can't just say national security. You've got to say there is this risk. A terrorist is going to do this, blah, 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 blah. You've got to be specific. You can't just be woolly about it. And it is used in a woolly manner. We just don't want to show you. But this one, never been used before. Section 38, this is endangerment to a person. So they are trying to, I mean, the funny thing is here, they've listed two. So really what they're trying to, this gives you an impression of we want to get out of this, and we are thinking of using this or this to get out of it. So it's kind of a pre-warning that we're going to try and not answer this. But Section 38 is because I've named the senior manager. Oh, in fact, you've got his name on. But anyway,
don't look at that. But no, that doesn't cover it up, does it? Yeah. Oh well,
it kind of doesn't matter because the DFT put his name in the public domain, and have even put his emails in the public domain. But because I've named him on this, it's trying to say that he will be personal harm or mental health or that, but
it's mental. So and 38 is the mental health of the people that we're trying to ask questions of, or you're trying to ask questions of. That's basically what they're saying. So they're using
it's the snowflake clause,
the snowflake clause, the wintertime clause, national security, and now the mental health of the people whose names have been found. So they are doing their very, very, very best. I better stop sharing that one, just in case anyone stops this video and goes back and looks, because oops, I forgot that.
Nobody watches this video.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Although Ian has had, we'll know because Ian's had some responses to the stuff while this has been happening in the past. So the next morning, so evening. Whoever's been assigned to stay up and watch us ranting, evening. Hope you're all right.
I think the only viewers we get it from government departments, isn't it? Trying to cover their asses.
I think so. Sadly, very, very sadly, I think so. Yeah, because that's it, John and all the others. Only a matter of time before the men in uniform were coming to collect someone live. That's right. They could have a nice holiday if they come. But come in summertime now. Don't come now. It's winter time and it's cold. Come in the summer to get me. The same for Bruce. It's wrong time of year for Bruce and I. So that means Ian's neck is in a noose at the moment. Right, and that's just a local trip. So you really wouldn't want to do that, would you? So right, that's that one. Let's just quickly whiz through some news, and then we'll go on to Josh. So let me again with the slickness of slickness. This was quite interesting because this report, and Brendan's getting slated for this, and he shouldn't be, because this report does have some dodgy stats in it, and I've seen it somewhere else, and it was about the and commented on it in fact, in another place today. And that was about the number of drone users in the UK and what the percentages are. And it was something like 50, a large percentage were over 55 and 2% were women or something like that. And that in itself isn't borne out by the stats for SES News. Most people are between 25 and 45 that read SES News. And I actually feel that the trouble with that is it means I'm losing touch with the audience because I'm not of that age.
Just where you kept backwards, you'll be right.
Hey, watch the same
age of the people to not lose touch.
So, I think your perspective changes. Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
have I gone?
No, you're still here.
No, you're still here.
Okay. Well, Josh is maybe not. I mean, he heard the first bit. No,
Josh is here as well. Yeah.
It worries me. That's
muted,
all, Josh. It just
muted,
worries me.
Unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself, Josh.
Oh yeah, Josh, you're on mute.
No,
sorry. Yeah, I was asking if you had to be the same age of the audience to be in touch with them.
I think a little bit. I do think a little bit. I can't possibly be looking through the eyes of a 30-something-year-old, and because
not without committing a crime.
But if I'm 30, if I'm 30, am I looking through the eyes of a 30-year-old though?
Oh, it's scary.
There is a bit of a point now with the age, because into some things in that. If Gary was now say 20 and doing SUAS News, he'd be on TikTok and he'd be doing SUAS dance.
I mean, he's not. Oh.
You're doing it with a dance. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I will blast you, not derail me there from all my lines of thinking and stuff like that.
And you would actually have drones on every week that you're being sent, and you're going. This is cinematic and it's a game changer. And you'd be doing a big smiley thumbnail and everything.
It's the best drone I've seen this week. Yes. So let's jump on to some other things. Before we leave this, though, with the Brendan thing, it's worth people having a look at this because I jumped in on this as well because I'm pretty sick and tired of drones being presented negatively, and almost always it's coming from the UK. And I'm really sick. What is it about the mindset here where we've always got to be coming up with worst case scenarios? And that's a pretty good one. That
look
at that.
I replied to that one. I checked the comment. I replied to it.
Yeah, there is like post-it notes of drone things, and it says like compiled by author, and this was one of them. But what's gone on here is the globe's been looked at, so the entire world, and any negative drone things like this one is in China. Don't know how valid it is, but what happens in China isn't necessarily going to happen in the UK. So just because you have a one, and there's something that could just be a single one-off unique crime, and then again, why is the UK industry always being hammered for these things? Why are we saying that one single crime warrants being put on as boom in a document of this is a drone crime, and then it not even being from the UK?
I've just done a video on this about how the vilification of the drone hobby / industry and the drones themselves. I mean, ridiculous, because we're told that drones are going to bring down aircraft. But did you see that footage out of Vancouver, Canada, where a recreational motorboat collided with a plane? You're more likely to be injured or have your plane damaged by a boat than a drone. Yet drones are a big fear, I mean, and there's so many. I've just been logging all the instances, and it is just, you couldn't write this stuff. There is so much negative stuff coming out about drones. That's why I say we've reached peak hysteria, because I cannot see it getting any worse than it currently is. And it's time people were called on this. We're all told, disinformation, misinformation. It's and the governments are telling us you've got to be on the watch. Well, a lot of this is coming from mainstream media. It's coming from government regulators. It's coming from all these crowds. Where it's not coming from is the drone operators. We need it, and we just don't have a voice. We just don't stand up. We just go, this is terrible, but no one's getting off their backsides and doing anything to push back. And that's why DJI drones may be banned tomorrow.
An interesting point with this as well. I had a look at the full report. So, but basically, there was an article written for, I think, a legal publication, and that started off very negatively. It talked about drones being a military technology, and then then talked about commercial. So it made it sound like the commercial come out of military tech, which it never did do. These were parallel technologies, and it's only media that's put the word drone on. So that for irked me for one, because I'm thinking, the way you package something and where you start it puts the context on the entire thing. So it doesn't matter how much facts you can be you can put something positive further down, but if you start it off in a negative frame, that kind of, that mindset's on the entire article. So it was that, but it was then, well, look at this earlier paper that's been done. So I had a look at that, and then mentions Gatwick. And then I thought, oh, it's got a link to Samira Shackle's article in the index at the bottom. So I thought, oh well, it's going to be correct about Gatwick. It's read Samira's article, the article that says there probably wasn't a drone. And what's the article do? It's talking about the drone being there. So the only reason Samira's article was indexed was just to take a figure out of it. So if you've read an article enough to get a figure out of, how are you coming to a different conclusion? You're presenting a different presentation of Gatwick to what the most recent articles that have delved into it properly have come away with. So it just struck me as, that's sort of, it's worse than confirmation bias, really. Confirmation bias is a bit there where you're picking your facts, but this seems a bit more of, I've read something, it doesn't say what I want to say anyway, but I'll cite the bits out of it that I like and ignore the fact that it doesn't gist with everything else I'm saying. So that irked me. So I have to say on those particular points, but yeah, it's disappointing that we keep seeing that happening.
Absolutely. And this one from someone that can pronounce it. It's the only reason I put this one up. So over to you, Bruce. How do we say this word?
Bullshit. It sounds different to the way it's spelled.
Yeah. It's very phonetic language.
It's probably Tafaki, because WH is pronounced with an F sound in Māori, so it's probably Tafaki. That's my best estimate. Yes, I'm not a linguist, not a cunning linguist.
But it's a registered trademark. I noticed that. So Airways International and however we say it, joint venture helping to drive New Zealand aerospace sector forward in a collaboration agreement. I'm not a big fan of restricted airspace for drone training and places or drone flying. But this
is where we're going, though. This is why we have all the restrictions, because once you restrict the airspace, you've got the opportunity to make money out of it. If it's unrestricted, there's no money to be made. And we've had this thing in New Zealand called AirShare, which was a voluntary, log your flights with AirShare, all safety, blah, 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 until they admitted that, well, yes, we're using this because we're going to turn it into a UTM. And now we can claim, look how much use this thing uses when it's voluntary, because it's just logging flights. It's not getting approvals or anything. And people have been duped into logging their recreational flights with AirShare so they can say, it's such a success, now we can commercialize it and make money out of it. I mean, well, excuse me, but, logging a flight is one thing. Having to request permission to fly is something and to pay for it is completely different. And as I say, people just given that they walk into the thing with their eyes open, but they don't see what they're walking into. It's lambs to the slaughter. No one listens to the fact that we got wedges going on here. Thin end now, thick end's coming. You're not ready for it.
Well, we're moving gently towards that. GAO needs actions needed to better support remote ID in the national airspace. Guess what? The government doesn't think the FAA is taking RID seriously enough, and they want more tracking of people. More tracking of people, you say, well, surely that doesn't really matter. It's only a very small range it's got. And here over on Reddit is a chap who's an agricultural drone owner in Texas. And I've just had an awful experience courtesy of RID out large field, spraying. But curious people, what isn't normal is figuring out exactly where I was using the remote ID. And then driving like a lunatic up to me and almost pinning me between my car and their trailer in the middle of the landing zone. So
this is interesting, because this is back to what we said back at the start of this, that sooner was RID there out, and especially in America, that it's going to be used by some NIMBY to actually seek out a drone user and then confront them. And that's what's happened here. In fact, can you pin the links this later?
Do you guys know what's going on with Canada remote ID?
So say again.
Do you know what's going on in Canada with remote ID?
Not yet. We
Nothing
look
I'm
forward
aware
to
of
your.
yet.
He's going to
You
tell
wanna
us
know
something.
Yeah, fill us in, mate.
I am not a remote ID political candidate. I am not on this topic, and I stay away. But so we have flight over people. We have BVLOS coming next year. No remote identification. We're not too worried like our friendly neighbors. However, apparently, I think, I don't know, is what's his name? Aram Analytics. Is Dan here in the chat? Because he would know this better. But I believe in like November, December, Nav Canada, which is a nonprofit spun out from Transport that charges us fees and manages the airspace. They announced that they're looking at, because we call it RTM, remotely pilot aircraft system technology. I don't know, RTM, but they're the ones that are saying that they're looking at network based. Now in Canada, we can't really rely on cellular alone. We need satellite because Canada's big. A lot of places don't have cell service. It's a little bit of a different market, but we're going BVLOS first, and then we're looking at incorporating. I think they set targets by like 2030 to have some sort of network-based remote identification system. I know that at the Unmanned Systems Canada conference in November, that was a topic, and then Nav Canada. So if anyone who's Canadian has the content, there's already talks of it and implementing it, but it's not the same concept from what I understand as like, is it a nefarious type of person, and are they going to come with, like, we don't have guns, right? Like we might have like maple syrup or something, but it's something that like
the safety and security thing is just a smokescreen anyway for money.
And like ours is you're going to have to charge like Bluetooth. We don't even, it doesn't seem to be a big topic, but because I made fun of the Americans last summer when we announced our proposed BVLOS rules. We were like, there was no mention of remote ID, and it's like, hey, we can do drone delivery without remote ID, and look at us. And then I kind of had some,
backpedal a bit
when we started talking about it, but it's just not as big as topic as in America. But I guess it's coming to the Great White North, and it'll be satellite, and it'll have to be cellular. You have to have dual SIM, I assume, for it to be effective, because we'll go remote rural BVLOS first because population density is so low. And they're the ones that will benefit from middle mile, larger aircraft. And our rules are allowing for up to 150 kg. So it'll be a different piece. But yeah, I know that the Canadians have avoided that topic, but it seems to be a thing but like no one's really putting their arms up like in other places, because I don't think we want every Joe, but looking at it on a Bluetooth kind of cellular app, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, that would be the simple way around it. Is if they had encrypted it, then I think we'd all been happy, and not everybody can see it. The idea that it's an open standard is suicidal. So let's, well, not suicidal, but it's just wrong. And now homicidal. Let's get on to the pushing towards the topic for the main topic for tomorrow. Before we talk to Josh, we'll keep him here for as long as possible that way. So, handily, DJI tomorrow, coincidentally on the day that this is all going through the house to see if it's going to move on again, HR, whichever it is, I can't remember now. They're removing the ability to share some of their sync some of their flight records and data on that very day. I mean, some might say too little, too late. Discuss.
Yeah, it's not gonna make any difference, because as quickly as they can turn it off, they could turn it on again if they wanted to, couldn't they? There's no guarantees. But I looked at the DJI thing. If this is really about security of the nation, then what's wrong with just geofencing sensitive areas like they have done in the past? Because DJI has always been very good about geofencing. It introduced it proactively, and it also introduced remote ID. It's not stepping back. So to say that, we're worried about the nation's secrets getting sent back to China, well, then just don't let DJI drones fly in those areas. And you've got the technology to do it now, and then the problem goes away. Nobody in China is going to really learn much from someone flying a DJI Mini 4 over a beach in Florida, are they? I mean, seriously. But you don't want them flying over the Pentagon, so geofence the Pentagon. If it was security, there would be other solutions, but it's not. It is basically a trade barrier to try and give US drone companies a leg up, because otherwise they're simply not competitive with DJI. They lag so far behind. You've got to force people to buy their products.
The thing that's just extra level of irony in this is we've seen in the last week or so Microsoft has been pimping its Copilot recall feature for Windows 11. Now, before this even got out, so before it's even on a single PC in the real world from a customer buying it, hackers have already hacked it, put out the tools. What it was actually doing, this is Windows 11, terrifying, really. It was taking a screenshot of your entire screen every few seconds. So everything you're doing, everything you're reading, your bank account, your CV2 code, your card numbers, you name it.
Right.
It was scraping it off the screen and storing it in a database. A database, again, that wasn't encrypted. So all someone has to do is breach your PC, which isn't the hardest of things by any means. And then they could just grab all this data. So your life could be destroyed. Not only can your bank accounts be cleared out, but people knowing so much about you and everything, all your data there, people could be blackmailed, the whole works. And now we've got Apple that's talking about AI on its phones as well. And if it's taking some similar approach, we're setting up mobile phones to, once they get compromised, so much data to be taken off them. So, there isn't all this, there isn't the same, certainly not from government. There isn't any hysteria when suddenly it's American companies scraping masses of data and doing so in an incredibly insecure manner, when it's been proven that, hackers, did it so quickly. And yet, when you pull that up, start that up, away against where they are with being with DJI, it just underlines again that it's the trade war thing, as we said before. So, for all you criticize DJI, you can put those same criticisms at your American.
Oh yeah,
so
plenty. You can
probably European ones as well.
Yeah, you can lay them at many doors. But
to answer Kevin put that thing up before I had to take a call. But
yeah,
the sensitive areas. I mean, yeah. Well, what's the problem if the drones can't go in the sensitive areas? Why does it matter if the Chinese know they're sensitive? And also,
well, you've announced where they are, but then having said that, in fact, I don't think I've got the map behind you. There's big areas of nuclear establishments in England that aren't on the Ordnance Survey map, but if you stand on outside the fence, you can see them.
And also, if you go onto Google Earth, all those blurry bits, they're the sensitive bits, right? So you know where they are. And the Chinese have their own satellites. They're getting just a few centimeters per pixel resolution from their pictures, the same as Maxar and all the other companies. They can see what they want anyway. So what the hell?
But there is some credit to what Kevin's saying and the skullduggery that they're up to. Whether this is the way to resolve it or not that's a different kettle of ball games altogether. I personally don't think it's going to continue tomorrow. I don't think this one is going to continue, and it's a shot across the bow, I think, to companies to actually, come on, start working on other solutions. Don't just wait for Skydio to make something for you at the price you want to pay. So start building them. So we're sort of going back to the future, DIY drones all the way. And Kevin could be jumping all up and down over DIY drones again, as he was back in the day. But that's, that makes sense. And handily, the good folks at AVSS and DIU have procedures for you to follow to pay them $100,000 per unit that you want to get sorted out. And Josh will know that. I'm sure Josh knows that very well. And we're going to jump onto Josh's thing. But before we move on, my prediction for tomorrow is it won't move any further. I don't know what Kevin thinks. I don't know what anyone else in here thinks. So over to the team. Who thinks it's going through and who thinks it's not?
Well, based on previous stuff, I think if you pay enough money, you'll be fine. Money buys security. I mean, look at the tariffs on Chinese EVs and things. That's going to make them secure. Their cameras won't work if you pay enough money. But keep your enemies close, and your friends close, and your enemies closer. It would be silly to alienate DJI to such a degree. I don't think it'll go ahead. But I have been surprised in the past by the stupidity of politicians.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I say it. at least, well, I'd love to know the number of people that have reached out to their the various politicians, the name of which I can't remember what they call them in America, their representatives.
Does anyone know how to do FOIA requests for that?
I think that would be quite hard. We can do amazingly. FOIAs in America cost money unless you're a media organization. So we get around by pretending to be a media organization, and we can get the FOIAs. But we can certainly try. But it would be. But I think you'd have to go to each one. Unfortunately, there's not going to be one place, because I think the industry will be surprised at how few people have actually written in. I bet you it's not very many at all. There's a lot of people typing away, and I'm going to write in. I'm going to write in alarm, alarm, alarm. But I haven't seen 500 people writing in.
Yeah, I think it depends on I think what is I don't know their acronym perfectly. The Drone Alliance.
Yeah.
Vic Moss and the guys like Drone XL and such. I feel like they've got a good collective following because I think they brought in the perspective of hobbyists getting screwed as well. I think when we moved away from just federal agencies and certain types of jobs being a niche to everyone, I think that might get more keyboard warriors actually doing things. I don't know. I feel like I'm stuck in a hard place there. I'm Switzerland in this situation, I think, in that our clients include Skydio, Brink, as well as we're partners with DJI. So I kind of sit in the middle as a good Canadian. And I feel like with this stuff, it's like the Americans that I speak with, they are actually, they're not dismissive. They're very concerned. And I feel like the perspective I'm hearing is that they think that the shot across the bow is going to actually be future bans. Like what's already in the market, let it go. Let that happen. But new products are going to not be approved maybe. And like that one's an interesting one because you're not causing economic harm per se to the existing American taxpayers who own, like, you know, we sell parachutes to Chula Vista and you know, you're going to go take their M300s, M350s. I just don't think that's going to fly, no pun intended. But like, I think, do they not get the M400? Maybe that's the situation.
The problem with that is it blows up the argument that it's all about security because the old drones are still going to be able to breach security. So they couldn't justify it on that basis. Well, they have to have a complete ban.
But I don't think there's logic in this argument anymore. I think we're at the point now where, and like for me, it's like I sell parachutes. I don't sell sensors. Like that's not my thing. Oh, I guess I sell an auto trigger, but I don't sell cameras. I don't have, you know, too much crazy stuff going on that I'm just that concerned to that stuff. But like, yeah, I feel like there could be like based on the intelligent people I've spoken with, there seems to be a view of like there's a legit worry, and like I would argue that like DJI throwing out the killing off the flight logs in the last hour is like like you don't throw that out there so reactively unless you're actually concerned and from a strategic perspective, in my opinion. I hope. I don't know what I hope. I'm just going to go with whatever. Adapt or die as a good business person.
Yeah, absolutely. And your parachutes are still going to fit other craft. You'll just make a plan and make that happen. Whatever the other craft happens to be, you'll have the parachute for it. And that brings us very nicely on to your announcement this week of the parachute for the Mavic 3 Enterprise and Mavic 3 Thermal. Do these plug directly into the... How do they plug into the machine to fire? Or are they independent?
So actually really good timing. So this is a rendering, but do you actually want to see some photos of it flying around? Like I just got sent some marketing content. I got to pick which photo, and maybe we can have a crowdsource which photo to go on the front page. Okay, well you shove them up. You can fire them up, and I'll put them up. All right, I'm sharing the screen. This was just sent to me like half hour ago, so some of them might be a little. But like, if anyone here, like, the one thing with AVSS you have to realize is like we're good at crashing stuff. We don't buy drones with sensor like cameras normally. Like that's not our thing. Like we intend to break them. So like when I fly an M300, it's got a dummy payload that's attached to where the drone is. Not attached to the legs of the drone like some of my competitors like to do in testing, but attached. Like we usually build dummy payloads. But here's some photos actually of the Mavic. And so to answer your first question, yes, it's attached. It's integrated straight in. So if I zoom on in, can you see me zooming?
We could for one click, but that's it.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
So you can see here we're plugged into the PSDK port. So we're mounted to the side, plugged into PSDK, and we've got a backup strap. This plug into the PSDK, unfortunately, for those customers that wanted to use the RTK antenna, we need it as well because we use that plug-in to send a shutdown command to the drone.
Right.
So these are some of the photos the boys were taking today to get, because I need a new cover photo for the website and flying around.
Question. Now, that's not over the GPS unit in that particular drone.
No, we would assess that. Like the way in which we design our product is like you might take out 1 or 2 satellites, but you can't degrade the system performance overall. Like third-party testing, that doesn't work. Like you drop down to like 6 satellites. So we're very mindful of that piece.
So which one are we choosing? I choose the last one. Not that one. Not that one.
You want 74?
No, not that one. No, the one with the green in the background.
Oh yeah, you like the green?
No, further back. The countryside, I mean. I don't know. What does Bruce say? I like pictures. That one. Those, yeah, something on that. No, that's hidden in the truck. Not that one. The next one. I don't know. What does Bruce say? Bruce is the man.
Nice construction site.
Yeah, mind you, it's cluttered. It distracts from the focus of your attention, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I like pictures with people in. So have we got one of it deploying?
How about a scantily clad woman holding it?
There we go. You said it. That's where I was going. That's exactly what I was. It's amazing how well those photos work.
There we go. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, so that's the Mavic parachute that we had built. I can't publicly announce it, but I can say we finished our ASTM F3322 using a similar system, a little bit bigger for the M3DT, so the Dock 2. And so we were able to transition to this. So like we'll be doing our final formal testing on that system, I think in a week or 2, and then do the next step of testing. And the regulatory regime in the different countries are actually, I know Bruce loves regulations and remote ID, and I know that we really need more of it, and that reading 600 pages per country is fun. But it is getting consistent. That is something that I can say from a parachute vendor's perspective, that we are getting aligned with similar rules in the parachute world. Not sure if you guys are aware of that, but EASA, the FAA, Australia, we're all starting to kind of align with transfer of energy, which are ridiculous metrics that they currently have, but at least they're consistent, I can tell you. And you're going to see more drones.
How many... here we are. Guidance of wise men and obedience of fools.
Yeah.
So how many live fires do you have to do of the thing? How many demonstrated parachuting experiences does the Mavic have to have before they tick it off?
Well, there's 2 types of rules, unfortunately. Well, there's a couple. There's one in Canada. We do a self-declaration where I think we talked about this in November, sorry, not in November, February, where there's a bunch of false declarations and a Chinese company got pulled off for making false declarations, not submitting paperwork, and like 200 pilots were screwed, and the whole compliance list. So that one is 0, I guess. And if you were to follow the international standard, so ASTM F3322, the number of requirements of tests are 45 deployments in front of a third-party testing agency with the current iteration of the standard. The net revised standard is changing some things. It'll be 49. Just a couple different new failures they want to include. I'm the tech lead on the ASTM F3322, so just seeing on how the voting's going. And then that test alone will get you compliance basically in the bulk of the countries, but you also have to do another set of testing. I think we've lost Gary, so I guess we just keep going.
He'll be Bruce, back, unfortunately. Yeah. So do you, when you do those tests, like 49 tests, you can't have even a single failure in that?
It's more of a 3-strike you're out rule. So like you might have a failure, and like, man, parachute testing sucks. It's expensive, it's problematic, and like you have to address the failures. Like, you know, it might be human error, might be something you learn along the way. But like, yeah, so like you're gonna have, you know, most people you'll have 1 or 2 failures. It's kind of like I know we've had, I think, one perfect ASTM, and you know, you strive for perfection, but one failure, you know, it's one of those things where the problem with the testing is you've got, you know, 5 or 6 drones going through 45 crashes. You might only have 10 units, so like you're repeatedly using a system, and like by the time you get to test 20 to 30, that systems might have been deployed 10 times, and like of course it's going to start breaking down, but like it's already a really expensive test. And I think one thing with the third party testing too, so like that ASTM is like the gold standard for many countries. In Europe, they have something called medium robustness example 2 for their MOC 2512. Sorry for the acronym soup. Means compliance 2512. And some reason they allow people to have 2 flight tests and 30 ground activations. Personally, I would never sell a product like that. I think that's horseshit, to be honest. It's just like, if you can't deploy it at least 30 times, like you should be questioning what you're doing. Maybe you don't need to hire a third-party testing agency, but like we like to have that there. Keeps everyone honest. And, you know, from my side, it actually helps me point, like, there's going to be a day where there's something goes wrong, and I want to point to that I followed industry standard to the T. I didn't cut corners. Because the funny thing is with the industry standard is those are usually the better actors, but there's still bad actors amongst that group, and people game it. And you know, I if you go on LinkedIn right now, you can see a kind of funny conversation going on with me and a couple competitors, and calling out people for like what we perceive as the gaming of the test, whether it's intentional or accidental. That's up for debate. But ultimately, it's like you're a safety company. No one wants to end up like Takata. If you guys know who Takata is, the airbag company that was killing people with their airbags exploding and killing. And I know our company, like, we drive that home of like, we do the right things, and like the right things are sometimes expensive and difficult and take more time and are hard, but that's the long-term approach. Like, you're not getting rich off parachutes today. Like, you got to build the market up. We're not, you know, the market's growing. And so that's where, yeah, the 45 crashes, failure scenarios and parachute deployments come into handy. And what's interesting is that test demonstrates your parachute opens, and it gives you your descent rate, gives you something called your most probable worst case, not your worst case, but your most probable worst case. What angle that drone's going to come on, is in the back, front, upside down, etc. But the new piece of testing that you have to do is called ASTM F3389. And so that's actually assessing the transfer of energy. So you'd use the parachute, you get the data, how fast it's coming down, M300, 3.5 meters per second, for example, and it comes down, and then you need to assess, is that going to kill somebody or not? The problem is we don't have a lot of data on this. Like, we have something called the AIS, abbreviated injury scale, and the issue with some of these testings, it looks at all mass as the same. A mass of 3 kg of foam versus 3 kg of metal as being the same type of transfer of energy. And so we actually have to do crash test dummy testing, and we fly these drones into a crash test dummy testing test. It's called an anthropomorphic test device. A bunch of sensors on it, on your neck and on your head, and the different injuries. And these metrics are now what the Australians have said for their flight over people. That's what. So we were the first parachute company in April to get a means of compliance approved from the FAA. I know the FAA a couple weeks ago announced that they're going to give more waivers out for ASTM parachutes, but for us, we can actually get rid of waivers. We don't need a waiver. So with our M3DT, with our M3E, by doing this testing over the next 60, 90-ish days, you'll see these products on market where there's no more waivers, more like the Canadian system. But this testing is destructive too. You got to take 6 brand new drones, can't have any physical damages, fly them into a crash test dummy, see that transfer of energy. And so that's really a big step change. And I think a lot of parachute companies don't fully grasp what's required anymore. Like, we started working on it in 2020, submitted in 2021, and got approved in April of 2024. So like, it's been a long time coming. A lot of money spent on, you know, I think we invested over $250,000 getting all this stuff through on just having a way to test. And this is something that the parachute market, 45 deployments to see if the parachute works. Then you got to go crash 6 drones to see, are you going to kill somebody? Because if the parachute's coming down too fast, it's not very useful, right? Or if it's, and this is where it's interesting with our means compliance, is you have to show no lacerations. So so what it is it's no exposed rotating parts that could cause laceration. So you either address the exposed rotating parts. You demonstrate that it couldn't lacerate. There's a couple methods there, some secret sauce pieces there to get you through. But yeah, parachutes are becoming more and more stringent. And like, I can tell you from sitting on, like, I'm again, like I said, I'm the technical lead on the ASTM standard. I sit on now working on some BSI standards and with different groups. And like, man, drone manufacturers hate parachute testing because they never realized how expensive it was to. And this is where it's nice when the drones are out in market for 7-10 years because you can actually recoup your ROI. You're trying to play the DJI keep up game and launch something every 3 years. Like, that's why we all make parachutes for DJI, is because it's a good market. But like,
and key refresh reduce your costs.
Yeah, pardon?
The key refresh program reduced your cost as well.
Yeah, the DJI refresh. Yeah, that's a good one. But the problem is, I love the argument like, oh, I'll just have DJI refresh and not have to use a parachute. And like, go ahead, but like, you're not going to get approved for flight over people. So yeah, it's a piece. Like, a parachute is not there to save your drone. Anyone who tells you that, like, I've seen competitors advertise on their website still today that, oh, it'll only be nicks or this to damage to the drone. It's like, you don't know that. You could have a parachute land on, deploy, drone drift into traffic, and a car smoke it. You could have it flip over in a gust of wind, grab the parachute, drag it across the field. You could just have bad luck. It's carbon fiber that's not designed to land at 5 meters per second, and it could break. It'd just be brittle. So there's so many variables that, like, your parachute's job is to help you make more money, help you do new things that you can't do, and to make sure bystanders don't get hurt. Everything else is kind of just marketing fluff. In my view, that is.
Yeah, it's not a bad view. You're not suggesting it.
I mean, I do appreciate without the honesty with it, because I think the trouble with parachutes, it hasn't been. I remember DJI's first parachute video. I'm trying to think what they called their
drop tape in 2016.
Drop tape, yeah.
Drop tape, yes.
The video always made me laugh because they cut it at the last few seconds. So as it's coming down, it's near some trees. You never see it land. They just cut, and then it's like the titles. I thought that has gone badly, and they just didn't want to do it again with the cost.
And I don't think so. We started a company in 2017, so I'm not going to act like I know what happened in 2016. But from what I understand, they didn't actually build that parachute. That was somebody else who did it.
Yeah,
maybe they're kicking around, maybe they're not.
Who I want to say it was Paris. I won't say because I won't get it. I think I know who was. Yeah, I know who made that. But yeah, it's so it's not a nice to have. It's a must have. And I think you're also making the parachutes for Brink, are you?
Yes, we are. We're working for the yeah. So we're
the thing that we had on last week.
Yeah. So we're working with Brink. We're the vendor for Skydio. We work with DJI. We're Switzerland.
Yeah. Well, no, that's fair enough. Why wouldn't Brink, DJI, and Skydio develop their own? Quite simply, the cost.
I think. The thing with the parachute, like from the hardware perspective, maybe, but like now you got to build an auto trigger, so you got to figure out, because the problem is like, I know you guys are open source people. I'm not speaking ill. I'm integrated with Mavlink. We integrate through ArduPilot and PX4. I don't know if PX4 is or Octarian is open source. I don't know what that world debate is. Again, I'll be away from that like remote ID. But it's one where like we've built models and we've like had really a lot of smart people working only on one problem for the last 7 years and on the auto trigger over 5 years. And it's like, you can use a simple model. Like we have a competitor that's like, when the drone reaches 70 degrees, it'll deploy. It's like, but like some drones can correct itself. You don't want to deploy. Like a parachute deployment is the last thing you want to do. And if anyone who flies the M300 knows, when you fly that M300 or M350 out, there's an emergency braking function when you pause on an automated mission. That thing goes beyond the 35. It goes up to 60, 65 degrees. We've seen it go 88 degrees and self-correct. So we've built all these models where we've got a lot of data sets and understanding failure. So I think that's one element, the intelligence of when to deploy. I think the big piece that helps is our regulatory knowledge. Like I I have to learn and be experts of rules in all countries. I only have to read like 100 pages. I don't have to read 600 per page, but per country, but I have to be dialed in. And then I think the other piece of it is regulations are changing so fast, and it's something, it's not a core competency. I think you look at the automotive sector, they don't build their own airbags. They outsource to Autoliv, to Nippon Kayaku, to Dicel. So those are similar kind of analogies, similar like Michelin tires. And I think ultimately the supply chain too, like I get to amortize my investments off thousands of units of parachutes over different types of models. Like I'm going to go buy my parachute fabric, and I'm sitting on, hundreds of thousands of parachute fabric right now that I can put across multiple units, as well as like I've got seamstress on staff, I've got laser cutters. Like we're very vertically integrated, so our cost structure is very appropriate for them. Everyone can make money in the case and still have a viable business as well. I think the piece that we added in the element is like we try to be a one-stop shop. Like when I'm working with a drone manufacturer, like I typically don't work with drone manufacturers that are only doing 10, 20 units a year. It doesn't make sense for my business. What makes sense for my business is to amortize them over hundreds, if not thousands of units. And then I can be very cost effective, and I can basically shepherd them through from, okay, we'll build you the hardware. We'll consult with you on what markets you want to sell to. We'll then build you the hardware that should meet those market requirements. Then I'll do the third-party testing and declarations. And I think one of the big things that helps AVSS versus a lot of our competitors is we have a means compliance. Like the FAA says we can get a declaration compliance for these Bring Skydio DJI drones. And so all our investments in the background, as well as like testing infrastructure, I've got a large net that I drop drones into. I've got fields. I've got different ground deployment systems. We just have a lot of testing infrastructure. We invested in that with one drone manufacturer building one parachute. They're not going to go spend the millions of dollars in all this supporting knowledge and infrastructure. That would be my argument on why. And yes,
sounds like a good one. Sounds like you said it before. So is this going to be another bottleneck then for manufacturers? They've got to reach a size where you're going to talk to them, or if you're another way of putting that is if you're parachutes, or if you're making parachutes for a thing, then there is some confidence in that company surviving or moving on. Must have reached the size.
Yeah, for me, it's like I'm not a venture capitalist. I don't wear Patagonia vests, but I definitely have to assess a drone company. Usually for us, it's like, so I love FOIA ATIPs. I get the data on all the drone registration in Canada, and I can do my own market assessment. I want to see over 100 units. Like I do want to see a path. I'd like to see a path to a good growth. I do have to take gambles because you don't know who the next zipline or Flytrex is going to be. So I'll bet on one or two startups a year and say, okay, I like these people. They're working hard. They're moving fast. They might not have all the money in the world, but they seem to have a good attitude. They seem to be actually executing and making decisions. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I play both games where, there's a certain volume, certain type of manufacturer. Yeah, let's go. Let's do this. It's pretty straightforward. There's some early stage companies where it's like, okay, like these people seem to have their thing and they're not cutting corners. They're trying to do it the right way in our perspective. And I'm happy to work with those too. So, but if someone comes to me and says, I want 10 units per year, it's like, we could do it, but we're going to charge an NRE. And if they don't have the capital for the NRE, because for us, I put in the same amount of effort for someone who's going to buy 1,000 units versus 10 units. So I've got to make it viable long-term for us. And that's just unfortunately, and like, not everyone needs to play in the ops over people game. Like it's a game in which drone delivery companies.
Say what game? Oh, ops over people game. I've understood it. Ops over people. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. You don't have to fly a drone over people. Like you could go sell an agriculture drone. You can go sell drones where you don't need it. Like this is, drone delivery companies. I think 54% of the type cert companies have parachutes. So like, if you're going to do drone delivery, you might as well just do it. But like as an industrial tool, whether it's a Bring Skydio or a Parrot or a Autel or a DJI or Wingtra to Quantum, like you don't have to do ops over people. It's a conscious decision that you want to play in that arena.
Yeah.
And it's a good market. Like 15% of M300s have parachutes in Canada, and that kind of gives you an insight into like not everyone needs them, but like there are certain missions where if you want to operate, you need to do it. And I think that just comes down to a business decision. It doesn't mean you're a bad business. It's just, if you want to go here, you have to make that investment. It's the same as if I want to sell a parachute that's going to be compliant in all markets, I got to spend like $200K per drone. And like, I think that's one thing that we understand it, because we pay those bills for the DJI drones. Like, DJI doesn't pay me to do it. I do it all myself with my own capital. And it's something that I put at risk, and I have to do my market assessment. So like, if I'm going to tell people this, I'm telling them from my own experience, and that's how we built our business.
Oof. We like honesty here, don't
question. We? Have you even thought about trying to approach you for doing a parachute for an eVTOL, one of the passenger ones?
We get a call once, twice a year to put in something. I think the last one was 2,800 kg. To be honest, we don't see why we want to do that today. And the reason why is, like, I don't mind betting on a startup drone company, but betting on an air taxi company seems to be very sketchy. As well, like, I'm not going to sell thousands of units. I'm going to sell like 50 units maybe over the next 7 years. And they're not going to, like, it's still going to be, I'm not going to sell them for $100,000 a piece, right? I'm going to sell them still for like they still have to be economically viable. And so air taxi things, and also the testing costs, like the thing with parachute is why people, I think, don't do parachutes too, is like going and trying to drop 2,000 kilograms from the sky sucks. You got to rent a crane, maybe. Oh, that's going to be thousands of dollars.
Ian, does EHang have a care refresh program?
I hope so. I don't know if they. I don't think the passenger has a refresh program though. Maybe
yes. Yeah, I've a terrible thing to say, but you almost should be having an industry sweepstake on when they do get the first person, because I think sadly that is, as night follows day, that's going to happen. So to answer the question about air taxis, it sounds cool. I think if you're publicly traded, you might do it for the pump and dump plays. But like, for me, it's just like the amount of effort you have to go in to test that, and like your engineers are going to hate you probably, because like testing parachutes already sucks, and like having that big of a mass and like going through that process, it'll be doable. But it's something like, if the company doesn't have the proper testing program and the capital to do it, you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. And it's just, right now for us, it's like we also do other work. That's the other thing. Like, half our business is drone parachute. The other half is we do guided delivery stuff. We drop things out of planes. Actually, the cool one that we're working on, and we're not the first. We'll be first 3. We'll be the first in Canada, or second in Canada, it seems. But like, we're triggering avalanches now with our guided stuff. Next winter, we'll be going out and using drones to drop explosives. We're already a explosive manufacturer. We use pyrotechnics in some of our drone parachutes, and so we'll be doing that. So I think that's why in our business we're very. I don't have to chase every deal. Like, I have competitors that need every $20,000 deal that comes across the line. I've got a bigger team, but we also may generate revenue from other drone related products.
You've upset me now, because it's only a matter of time before somebody in the UK writes drones dropping bombs with parachutes.
You know what, we're doing it with Transport Canada, if it makes it feel better. We're doing it with the government.
Oh, no, I understand, but I'm just thinking, people never put the detail; they just put the headline and leave it at that.
Snow bomber. Canadians bomb abominable snowman. Canadians seek mystery monster.
Do you know how we deal with avalanches in Canada?
Sounds like aggressively.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah. Sounds like you did aggressively. If you're dropping stuff.
Here, I got to show you. Can I share my screen again?
Yeah.
And again, full disclosure, like, we've been working on this contract for about 2 years. Someone last winter did it in Alaska. The state of Alaska also tested this with a company, Drone Amplified. So it's not like we're the first. I will not say we are the world's first. That is false, fake news. We'll be honest here. We want to be honest. But this is how we deal with avalanches.
Oh, here we go. At its stage. Oh, cannons.
Yeah, I believe they use mortars here in New Zealand too.
Okay. Well, it gives the army something to do over there.
You could hardly miss a mountain, could you?
Yeah. So,
yeah.
but they're doing they're doing thousands of shots in a wintertime in like one province on that. And this is happening in the States as well as in Europe. And basically that artillery operations is the longest ongoing artillery operations in Canada since like the 60s. But yeah, we're taking some drones and we're going to be dropping explosives, and we have different types of with and without parachutes. We have kind of this whole software suite to analyze the performance, build out. We could also incorporate some LiDAR data if we wanted to inspect. But I just got back from an avalanche conference about a month ago in British Columbia, and so that, again, that's just kind of like going back to why we get to not chase every deal that comes across the board, and we get to be more discriminatory on who we work with. And you know what the reality is too is not that a big company makes a better drone by default. I think we've seen a lot of big companies come and disappear. I think that outside DJI obviously makes amazing platforms, and they're very big. But I think one thing is a lot of small drone companies come, they want a parachute, but one that they might not be able to afford the full testing program. Like they don't have 10 drones that they can sacrifice. They don't have the capital to handle the spare parts. They can't afford the third-party testing fees. And like we've seen one company so far that we integrated with where we actually stopped doing the integration because they started blaming things on like their drone was going bad, but they wanted to blame us. And we're like, wait, like I've worked with DJI now for several years on like parachute deployments, and I can tell you they've never debated a report. So when a parachute deploys, we give a report to the customer to be like, this is what we saw happened. Go to DJI and get your warranty. Like that's outside our scope, a motor failure or something. And DJI has never questioned one of our parachute deployment reports. And so from our perspective, it's something that like, I don't want to get into a conflict with the customer mind because they're arguing that we shouldn't have deployed, because ultimately our auto trigger has different algorithms for single motor, double motor, different types of failures. But we're looking for thresholds. Like we're not using AI that decides on its own black box. It's like, we have a proprietary code base that we keep confidential, but like we tune these algorithms, we set parameters, and the manufacturer agrees to those. And if the drone breaches said parameter, the parachute will deploy because we have agreed as a group that is what a failure would look like. And then these are the things that like, I think with the drone industry, there's still some like immaturity and blaming others and, worrying about the short term. And it's like, no, guys, like failure is going to happen. It's okay. But like how we deal with the failure is going to be the most important thing. And let's not bicker on something that, we agreed to.
Yeah, no, it's with common sense. You're going to get your common sense red card in many times tonight. Yeah, it's an interesting. It's that one. Now, did you or have you covered the changes in the? Because you mentioned to me there's the changes in regulations for parachutes. It's your means of compliance. Is that the changes that you are referring to?
That's one for the FAA. So I'll be very honest, like that one we've been working on for a few years. Everyone's known since 2021. I don't know why other parachute companies weren't working on it. They must have been asleep. But what's interesting is now the Australians have adopted that same transfer of energy. They're saying 15 joules of transfer of energy for ops over people. They're taking on the perspective that a mass is a mass. They're taking 100% of transfer, although like the M3DT might transfer 60-something% of transfer, unless you prove otherwise. I know we've been talking with the regulator there and showing them, hey, this is what we're doing with the FAA. And EASA has a proposed means of compliance for high robustness, not medium, high robustness, which is -2 on your ground risk score, GRC, for those that use SORA and M2 mitigation. And they too are acknowledging the same. So it seems like the FAA came out with these crazy conservative rules, and now Europe, Australia have said, oh, you know what, we're going to follow those too. And the funny thing is with the US rules, it did stem from space junk, if you know about how those metrics were created. But it's something that ultimately any drone above 15 kg is not going to get this simple ops over people in the US / high robustness transfer of energy. Around 10 to 15, you're going to have some wind limitations unless you build certain frangibility foam type things. And then under 10 kg, under 5, you're going to be good. Under 2 kg, you're in a good spot. Like our Mavic 3 Enterprise is going to be category 2 drone. You're going to be able to go do your mission, no waivers. and you don't need prop guards. I think that's one thing. If you go on my LinkedIn right now and go watch all the fun I was having yesterday, I'm on vacation theoretically. I'm actually just sitting at Heathrow right now, heading home. But I was in Newland. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Newland in the Cornish coast.
In Cornwall, yeah, Newland, yeah, lovely, yes.
That's where I've got the tan lines. There was sun there, I guess. But the transfer of energy and the prop guards. So in the U.S., the FAA announced a couple weeks ago about waivers, but you have to have prop guards. And then, but our means of compliance, you don't need prop guards. We prove there's no laceration, and with our means of compliance, because the problem with these parachutes, that even some that are ASTM for the Mavic 3 they're above the max tow. I know Mark, I think when we spoke with last time in February, he was calling it out, being like, you put these parachutes and suddenly they're beyond the max tow, and like, what the hell's going on? And like, I've had meetings now with the FAA, Transport Canada. I've had conversations with the ASA, and I bring this topic up. It's like, whose word is gospel? Like, I just want to know. And it turns out it's not the manufacturer. It turns out that I can declare to go above the max tow, but then I got to worry about warranty. Then I got to worry about the insurance guys. Then I got to worry about the lawyers, and I got to worry about all that other crap. And so, like, that Mavic 3 Enterprise, we actually redesigned that product. We had something ready 2 years ago, and then it was above max tow, and we're like, you know what? It just doesn't seem right. Now, there is a model like you got to go above max tow, but from our testing, 20, 30, 40 grams, not that bad. But it's sufficient and it's fine. You just get a reduction in flight time, and you got to be mindful of like motors. But the thing is with our means compliance, there's no prop guards, so you're not going to go above that extra weight, because I think the Mavic 3 prop guards in itself are 100 and something grams, and the max tow is 130.
How much does a mortar shell weigh? They don't seem to care about it in Ukraine.
The mortar shell? Oh, you could incorporate that and be part of the drone, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like a max tow that must massively exceed it. They still fly well enough.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, how many flights they need. I think that's one thing with interesting about Ukraine is like, they're making drones, like they clearly are doing very good work, but are they designing anything for long-term reliability? Probably not, because why bother? Why
one time use.
one and done, right? Like, that's the metric. Does it fly out of the box once? Okay, cool. But like, if you're putting on that extra weight over and over, I assume your motors are going to degrade over time.
Oh, I'm sure they must have lost several to motor and speed controller failure en route to their once-time operation. That's a function of mass, though, isn't it? If you have, or numbers, if you have lots and lots of them, then only one of them's got to get through. See the voltage on their FPV feeds. Now, I haven't seen that effect. Yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, that's a
land now.
Yeah.
Weather's going to be a factor as well, because if you're overloading a drone, that's all fine if the weather's fine. But no wind. You're fighting against the wind as well. That's where you're gonna,
see some of the footage.
Terrible outcome.
Some of the footage that from the Mavic type craft, they're shaking like hell. Some of them, they've obviously, lost a bit of prop or something's going on, but they're certainly not cruising smoothly.
Yeah, and that's one that I think that it's an interesting topic, but ultimately it's a piece that, it's a weird one that the regulators are like. So the argument I heard recently was like, well, the aircraft aren't type cert, so like, we do what you want, just make sure it's safe. And it's like, oh, there's some common sense there, but like, I'd rather you just tell me yes or no and like write it down on paper and not leave it, because the customer's the one that always gets screwed in the end. And that's the stuff we saw in Canada with all these fly fire parachutes that were falsely declared. We saw that with these products, and it's like, the regulators regulate, but they don't have any consumer protection concept. And that to me is something that I don't want to open that. Like, there's going to be a day where that happens, that somebody buys a bunch of drones, because you talk to any DJI dealer, they all have stories of losing 50 to 100K to some product that never showed up and was dust. And like, I think that's the type of thing that like, it doesn't, don't shoot ourselves in the foot, guys. Like, can we just like not do that? But one can wish.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting what you said about the regulators, because that's a point we've touched on before. It just takes one regulator to make a decision, and whether it's good or bad, it just gets universally adopted, unfortunately. And it's a bit of a shame hearing about the FAA really being overzealous, because the good thing they've done there is obviously have a shore and a lot of testing there. So it just sounds like the parachute is one of those things that hasn't gone down that route, because obviously when they're giving tests, they're giving enough funding. You know, and the one at the moment we're waiting for to come out, I think it's going to be September, was, you know, that was, I think, was over $17 million of a test, which is flying a drone into an aircraft engine.
Live jet engine.
Yeah, so they're the kind of guys that would be good for setting up, you know, some really good data around parachutes for a regulator to say, look, we've tested it, we've dropped it on a dummy, we've done all this. This is the outcome, and people can have some common sense.
That's actually why. So apparently, I don't know where I read this, but apparently the FAA is being more liberal with their waivers. If you have a drone under 3.5 pounds, ASTM certified. Unfortunately for those, it will be prop guard, which we don't need. But what they uncovered is they looked at all existing waivers, and that the real concern was laceration, not so much the drone falling, and they never had any single incident. So that was after having data since like 2019. So like, I think the FAA is showing that. I would argue, I think from my experience in the last 18 months, maybe, about 18 months, something's happened at the FAA. They are very engaged. I know with our means compliance, it sat on the shelf for 2 years, and they started engaging us in April. They sat in our crash test dummy similar testing for sure last summer. We had them zoom in and watch, and they've been very, very engaged as well. At the ASTM meetings, I've never seen such a large engaged contingent. Normally, the guys from Transport Canada steal the show on regulatory updates and very blunt talks. And, you know, at the last 2 ASTM meetings, the one in November in California at Google, and the one in California in April at Komodo and Nippon Kaku, like the FAA is showing up with 10, 15 people, and they're there, they're engaged, they're asking questions, they're really working towards Part 108. And so I would, you know, not knock them today, saying that, like, you know what, they've come a long way in their engagement with the industry. They've got people who seem to care and who seem to have objectives to solve problems. So like, it's coming a long way. And again, I deal with regulators all the time because we're always seeking out these approvals with customers. Has left the drone team. Yeah, he's now a spokesperson in general. Is it Kevin Morris?
I'm not sure, but yeah, it's not a bad move.
No, but you know what? I think it's you got to see these ASTM meetings. I feel like that's where, and I know that in the past there's been comments on how they're just useless meetings, and I think in the last few years they've come a long way. And again, I started going in 2022, and like I've been to every one since then. And it's something that in the last year the meetings have changed, and they're actually creating substance, and you're getting insight, and you're seeing standards being adopted. That's the biggest thing. Like, I, as an industry person, like, I just want one set of rules. Just tell me what to do, and I'll follow them. If they suck, they suck. But at least we all suck together, right?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. No, it's interesting times. Oh yes, interesting times in the parachute world. Look, we've gone over the hour, and so I need to knock this on the head. So I'm very tired as well. But thanks, Josh. Thanks, Josh, for coming along. I hope you'll come again and keep us informed. It'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow. Not a lot, I don't think. But
yeah, I hope you're right, Gary. I hope it's all stress for nothing. And I think the next time I come on, I will bring data on our avalanche triggering. I think that's what we want to see.
Maybe that Russian invasion is just an attempt to reduce the number of avalanches in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's probably. Well, if you a place, it makes it a lot harder to have an avalanche.
Yeah, there's nothing for the snow to see.
Yeah. Yes, it's like China coming here and mining all the minerals. They just remove hills. They just remove it. It's just gone.
Hey, it's safer.
It's gone,
I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely talking nonsense. So, any big stories before we go? Go in once, see what Ian does. Go in twice. Well, he's moving for his keyboard. 3 times.
I have to first, because you know every time we finish the show, something kicks off 5 minutes afterwards. So
it is true. It is true.
Blackmagic stereo camera.
Yeah, there is a Blackmagic stereo camera. Very, very expensive.
Oh no, he's hooked him.
There was the GH6 last week, which I didn't get to talk about. I was mostly about that. It looks like it looks like everything's sound and there's nothing kicking off at the minute. So,
and
there you
just
go.
before we did I don't know if we even spoke to the audience, but we did find, or you did find some more helicopter traffic. You did confirm some more helicopter traffic for Gatwick, which was.
Yeah, it was funny. It was obviously Gary, some information you'd found at the time. So we knew that because what we're trying to do was trying to understand if helicopter traffic could have accounted for some of the sightings at Gatwick back in 2018, which it certainly looks like it did. Well, obviously we were looking at a particular sighting and we knew there was a helicopter there. We got a photo of it as well, so very much know it was there.
But it was a bit on the ground at the airfield at the time with a date stamp.
Yeah, exactly. And then it wasn't on the Freedom of Information data, so we had this mysteriously vanished helicopter. But yeah, actually, I'm going back to the National Police Air Service and saying, wait a minute, this data is not complete. They did apologise and give me a complete set. So yeah, that mysterious helicopter is now materialised and accounted for.
As if by magic, helicopter appeared. Yes,
but it does show that they had kept up a pretty consistent coverage of the airport till the RAF arrived, which is what we thought anyway. So it's underlined that. So it's just good. It's another piece of evidence that's there. So if someone ever wants to go over and look at it and think, yeah, it didn't add up. Yeah, you've got the data.
And I think that sounded like that was a genuine mistake that wasn't there. So
I agree.
It sounded like it was a mistake. So we all make mistakes, as Josh has been saying. Right, with that,
don't speak for everybody, Gary.
Oh, all right. It's true. Yes, that's true. Very true. Sorry, Your Honour. Sorry, Your Lordship. Dear viewer, wherever you are in the world, thanks very much for being with us. We look forward to seeing you again next week at 2100 Gin and Tonic. Cheers for now, everybody. Take care. See you next week.